We got Tim and we got Kosta here today. I know this is going to be a fruitful and fun conversation to see where everyone's at and what new developments you found. So why don't we just get into it, lads? Question of the Friday conversation: how are you using AI to learn?
What I've started doing with AI is challenging my own workflows and process. So I use AI in a collaborative sense where I don't spend 45 minutes on a prompt and get one response. I do the fastest thing I can to get something, and then I start adjusting it and iterating on it, and then until it gets close enough to that I can finish it myself or polish it off myself. But what I've started doing is at the end of that process, I will, in a brand new chat, I will just ask it, what is the best way to accomplish X? And X will be the thing that I got, like the thing that I wanted to get. And it'll give me a bunch of different things. And I'll ask it to, like, I'll copy the whole chat that I had to get to my thing and I'll put it into that new chat and I'll say, how does this line up with your suggestions? And can you analyze like a faster way I could have gotten here or a better way I could have gotten here?
Oh, I
And
like
it'll just
that.
start giving out random like suggestions of like, oh, this prompt was kind of unnecessary and you could have put these two prompts together, and this prompt shows that you weren't 100% sure of what you were asking and you're still kind of like discovering. So maybe, instead of asking it to do something, ask it to challenge your ideas to get a better understanding of what you're asking for, and then prompting it to get that. And what it started doing is just kind of like adjusting the way that I interact with AI, and I I'm getting faster, like I'm getting to things quicker than I would have if I was
Mm.
just talking to it. Especially when you're looking at like token usage and even just speed, and sometimes like different models take different lengths to respond, especially when you're dealing with large contents. The project I'm working on is multiple pages of content in HTML code, and it does like to get, Copilot is what I'm using specifically to work on that. It takes a long time to write that code. So every time you make an adjustment, it could be a long time that you're spending waiting for the next one. So it would be the most efficient to just create this like super long master 100% specific intentional prompt to get one result and be done with it. But that's not the way that I think, and that's not the way that I feel productive. So this way it kind of gives me like best of both worlds, and it also allows me to analyze my own approach to how I get to what I want faster and
Yeah.
sometimes better.
Yeah. What's that quote? If I'm gonna butcher the quote, but something along the lines of, "If I've seen farther, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants." Like you have to get to the first step and then step on top of that to get anywhere. And with AI, sometimes my challenge has always been like, it's brilliant. It's really smart. It's definitely smarter than me, which albeit isn't that hard. I I can't. It's like a brilliant tutor with amnesia when I'm trying to learn
Yeah.
something. You guys ever see 50 First Dates, the Adam Sandler movie
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
with Drew Barrymore? And she got in a car accident, and every day she wakes up and she's got no memory of what happened the day before. So her family's just like putting that newspaper and like reliving the day over and over so she doesn't
Mm-hmm.
freak out. And but this guy falls in love with her, and he's able to have a life with her. And AI's like her, but like a brilliant genius. Every time I start a new chat, it just forgets
Yeah.
everything that we did together. And so that was my main problem. And if you watch the movie, Adam Sandler makes a video for her when she wakes up so that she gets
Mm-hmm.
context on her life, and then she has her own diary where she talks to herself. And so like with the diary and the video, that's kind of what I do with AI. I had this idea to do it so that it loads the context for what I need, and then I can take steps so that you know I'm not dealing with Drew Barrymore waking up every day without knowing a thing.
What an awful problem to have. Dear
Yeah,
Lord.
and but it's real with AI, and most people just continually get slop and they get AI fatigue because they're
Yeah.
just waking up and dealing with that person that just got amnesia, and they keep hearing it's brilliant, like, oh my god, it's so smart, it's intelligent, smarter than 90% of experts on the planet, and then it just pumps out garbage, and people don't know how to use. So that was my big thing, like. I figured out how to do it in the, you guys know I'm on a side quest to bring people to the IDE. You know, I'm not technical. I don't have a coding background or anything, but I did find when I was trying to learn about AI, all of these technical people using AI in a different way than non-technical people. And it doesn't take any technical skills. It doesn't take any coding skills. I talk, you guys know, I just talk to AI the same way I talk to the AI chatbot on the website. But I was able to build that journal and that diary and that video. I was able to build it so that me and AI could have a wonderful marriage together, you know, and and I built the thing that I'm doing now is in the IDE building context, so I can take step by step as a business mentor. And what's cool is I picked a mentor, you know, who I think is the GOAT because he simplifies everything, is Alex Hormozy. And I took his books that cost $1 and pumped him in there. And he's got tons of video content. So I told AI to like, look, here's his YouTube channel. Look at all the stuff, particularly the interviews and how he handles stuff. And we learned some stuff about him that we put in the videotape, you know, which is he doesn't really care what people are saying. He's still diagnosing the problem. Like he has a system. So between the books and the videos, it broke down his system. And then I use it in very, very particular ways. So I load up all that information and I make sure that I can ask it questions. I make sure that it knows about me and how I learn. I make sure that everything that I do is me. I'm not getting AI to do the work. I'm trying to understand what I'm supposed to do, and then I do the work. And then I have it analyzed based on, you know, what it knows about me, or the diary part that I built up, and then what it knows about Alex Hormozy's systems. And I'm able to compress books worth of business knowledge into what I need to learn right now, ask it questions that I need to be able to do it, and then I do it, and then I have somebody observe my work and you know, see what that guy would do. So I just building this workspace. Cool side note, I'm building a workspace that's similar in the Everwise community for month 2 for people to be able to like just do that, you know, get that brilliant tutor with amnesia to work for you.
Just a note on kind of what you were saying is kind of doing the making sure that you're doing the work. It's the way that I've approached this specific project I'm working on too, which is everything is in HTML, and I've never used HTML before. I know the basics, like I know it's code and it's for websites and all that stuff, but I have no clue what anything means. Like there's just so many symbols and
Yeah, so many
things and
tags and
different,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, different, names for things. Um, but what I did was I don't really want to learn HTML, but but I need to use it. So I asked Copilot to tell me what do I need to know to be able to copy and paste code back and forth from you to this HTML thing? Like what is the absolute basics of HTML that I need to know so that I can find out where things are and how things are affecting? Like, do modifiers happen before things or after things? What is the two little brackets and a p mean and all that stuff, right? And it gave me just the basics, like just the basics that I could like navigate around an HTML page and know where things are, but I don't necessarily have to know exactly what they are, right? And that's kind of just like another way to look at it where you don't have to learn everything, right? Like if you because AI is what it allows you to do is anything. Like you can use it to do anything you'd like to. You don't necessarily have to learn everything you do, right? I think that the thing that I would say is like make sure that you're still learning something. Like don't just get it to do it and be done with it. But you don't have to learn everything because then I think for that you'd spend your entire time just learning
Yeah,
everything
absolutely.
and you're just going to fill yourself up with stuff that might not even be useful to your goal.
So you're saying you let AI handle some stuff because it's not worth learning, which is true. How do you pick what's worth learning and what's not?
It's I For me, I picked what made most sense. Like I just asked Copilot, what do I need to know to be able to fix this problem I'm having? And the problem I was having was it wasn't giving me the whole HTML file back. It was just giving me sections, and it was saying replace this in this spot,
Right.
but it wasn't giving me enough context to see where it was. So like, and it's giving me like seven different things I need to replace in seven different spots, and it's taking me super long to find those spots. I probably could have just learned HTML code and fixed the problems myself in the time it took me to just find out where it was. So I just told, I'm having this problem finding things. What do I need to know about the structure of HTML so that I can find things faster, right? So I can do this thing that you're asking me to do faster, and it just gave me the basics. So it was like, it was the problem that I was having that kind of pushed me to the prompt that allowed me to get just enough understanding so that I can still use Copilot or whatever, any other LLM as the workhorse. Whereas I have an understanding that somebody, possibly like even a manager of that person, would understand. Like I understand the basics of it and I understand the kind of structure of it, but I don't understand the actual weeds or roots of how these things function. But just like a lot of managers or directors or leaders don't have to understand the absolute specifics, they do have to understand the basics and the kind of how that functions with the different parts of the business. So that's kind of my analogy.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So like when you're running and you get to a hurdle, you just learn enough to hop over that hurdle and keep going.
Yeah. And I think that's a great analogy because it, when you ask somebody, if you talk to somebody about like, um, if they're talking about how they can't learn stuff and you're like, oh, like have you tried, or and they're like, oh yeah, and I just can't, like I'm trying to learn, I tried to learn guitar but my fingers hurt and I just, it was too much and I couldn't do it, right? Is how many times have you talked to somebody and like a hurdle, like a hurdle, and if you know how to play guitar, like you know, like kind of sucks that your fingers hurt a little bit, but like you
You
get
get
over
used
it
to it.
and then you keep going. Like it's not,
Yeah.
it's not like a wall that you can't climb. It's a hurdle. Like it is literally like a small thing to step over to you, but to them it was like a you know, your Alex Honnold climbing that, you know, tower. Like it's literally like the hardest thing that someone's ever going to do because they've never done it before. Like they don't understand it or they don't know it or
Yeah.
they don't know the whole process. So they start feeling the pushback. They see that kind of barrier and they just go like, oh, too much for me, I can't do it. So like using this to like understand what it is, like, and that's the other part too, where I was asking it, I don't understand like where you are trying to send me to put this stuff in. I don't get it. Like I don't understand anything about this. And the way that it did it is like explained the basics and the structure. And I feel like that analogy works for this guitar thing too, because like if you knew like it's gonna hurt for a little bit while you're learning, so like just the first couple of days or the first couple of weeks, and what it's telling you is just take a break. Like you don't have to like just go until your fingers bleed, right? Don't practice, like if you're going to practice for 2 hours a day, don't practice all at the same time. Practice for 15 minutes at a time, and that way like when your fingers start hurting, you go a little bit and then you give it a break, and then those calluses will start to form, and then all of a sudden your fingers don't hurt. So like understanding the problem allows you to see through it and see that it's just a hurdle and it's not a giant wall in front of you.
Let me ask you guys a question around this because I think there's a big circling question around. Both of your answers are very technical on how you're using it right now, but one of the things I really encourage everyone to think about AI from a perspective is what you actually stated there earlier, Costa, and it's the tutor aspect. And the tutor is not just there to teach you computers. Tim, you just kind of covered that subject too. Like you can have a tutor who is your guitar teacher. There's tons of ways that you can use this system to actually educate yourself. And I know at Everwise, that's really what we're about. It's all about learning. So from a less technical perspective, maybe, because I don't want people to get caught up into the whole thing that the only thing you can really use AI for is understanding AI, right? That's a great tool, but it's actually, you can educate yourself through the entire thing. So as an example, I've shared with you, Costa, is, I homeschool my kids, or we homeschool my kids, right? And one of my kids is big up on geography right now. So I actually used it to design an entire program for him, a mini game to help him use, and it's only focused on US geography right now, but it's essentially broken into 4 stages. The first stage is you have to identify all the states. You have to write them down. The second stage is you have to place all of those states on the actual geographic map. The fourth, a little bit glitchy right now, still working on it, but it's actually bringing in the state flags so that you get an understanding of what the state flags look like as well and place them. And then the fourth is actually there's historical aspect to every single state that you can actually click on and you can read about, like what was their involvement in the Civil War or the Revolutionary War, who were some famous people from this state, why is it, what's their GDP, what does their economy look like, right? So it's all kind of woven in just from that perspective of teaching him a little bit of geography, a little bit of history as well. And that's a really effective way that you can actually use AI, right?
I love how it's a game. I love how you've gamified it, you know?
Well, if you think about how do we learn, right? How do we effectively learn? And that's one of the things that Everwise is actually trying to tackle and is recognizing that the click culture that we have, the dopamine addicted culture of scrolling and stuff, isn't actually teaching us anything, right? To Tim's analogy, you could read all the theory in the world about guitar and how to play it. Doesn't mean you know how to play guitar, right? For that actual, it's the muscle memory that you build up. It's the calluses that you actually build up. It's the finger placements, knowing how things go, the riffs, all that stuff. You actually have to, as we say, you got to build. You got to do the do. I think that's copyright by Mountain Dew. I apologize.
Cut that out.
Message
We'll
from our
beep it out.
sponsor.
No one will know what we're talking about. I think I just want to speak to this too because it's and it's not just that way too, right? Like it's not just the muscle memory, it's the knowledge as well. Like you can't, if you go out and I think Kosta used this, the basketball analogy, like if you go out and just shoot hoops like forever, you will get to a certain point of good. Like
Yeah.
your body will understand, oh, I'm getting more hoops in when I'm doing this, so I'm going to keep doing that. um but like eventually you're going to hit a plateau, you're going to hit a spot where like you can't get better and you're not sure why, because the things that you're trying to figure out are like so specific that it's so hard for you to understand what you're doing wrong. And that's where like that knowledge, if you start with the knowledge and the muscle memory at the same time, like you're doing things at the same time, like you can learn more effectively, you can learn faster than if you just are doing muscle memory or if you're just doing the knowledge, right? Like it's kind of just how our brains work, like how
Mm-hmm.
we connect things, the neurons in our brain connecting different ideas and thoughts and actions and muscle memories. All of that stuff works together. It's not, we are not like, we're not like a robot where we have to like wait for the zeros and ones to process before we process the next thing. Like we don't have like 16 cores and each core does its own thing at like a different like sequence, right? Like our brain is so complicated and it does things at the same time, it does things in sequence, it does things,
We're not even
syncopated
aware
from each
of.
other. Like there's things that are happening that we don't even know how it works, right? But what we do know is that it all happens at once. Like it's all jumbled up in there, and the more connected you can make things, which is scientifically proven by a lot of different, especially music, like pedagogy studies and scientific studies show
Mm-hmm.
that the more like the greater amount of things that you can connect to each neuron that is attached to this skill, the faster you will be able to recall that skill or be able to relive that skill
100%.
in your muscle memory,
Yeah.
right? So there is like, I know it's funny because there's this kind of like old myth of like chew bubble like a certain flavor of bubble gum when you're studying science and then go take a science test and chew that bubble gum, right? But like it's
Is that a
actually more
thing?
effective to chew all the different flavors while you're studying science, and also study science in your basement, in your outside, in your car. Like you just go and do the thing that you're doing in different areas and your brain will have more connections to those things. And if there's more connections to those things that you're learning or intaking or memorizing, it'll be easier to recall them. There are more paths to there, right? Think about, you're just trying to create mini roams in your head where like everything leads back to those things, and it's so easy to find the center of Rome because every road leads there. I've never been there, so I don't know if that's actually how it works, but everyone says that. So
I it's interesting what there was a lot to unpack there, but I think what I got from it is there's a lot of stuff that we can do personally, just understanding how humans learn that we don't do in traditional school, which is what I really value as a self learner. The second thing is the value of like an outside observer or mentor, watching you shoot that basketball.
Mm.
And that is something that AI can do. And there's limitations now, but I see a world in which it can listen to music and tell you where you're speeding up your pace, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just give you feedback, and the video is getting like understanding pictures and videos getting a lot better, a lot better. There's self-driving cars and stuff, so it could potentially even see you shoot a basketball and correct you. But for right now, it's predominantly knowledge work. At least that's what I use it for. And I do have it keeping an eye on me. In particular, where we've discussed ad nauseum, and I see so many people online using AI and coming out not understanding a thing. Like, it did all the work, and then you don't understand anything. You're even presenting it at work, and they're asking you questions, and you're like, man, I was just embarrassed. And instead of getting it to do the work and probably pumping out slop, I have mine watching me particularly to make sure I'm building something, and I'm building something based on my knowledge, not its knowledge. It's very easy to do. So having it watch me and mentor me and have me ask questions and have me actually build something in the real world is really, really important. I also, like most people, have a tendency, it's very easy to just, do the mental masturbation thing where you're watching 5,000 YouTube videos and not actually producing anything or building anything. And I really want my diploma to be what I'm able to produce in the real world. That's my diploma, not a printed piece of paper from somebody that said, congratulations, you've memorized what I told you to memorize, whether it's correct or not. And that's really what school is. And anybody that's, feels ostracized or doesn't feel like they fit in, which I never did, or is a critical thinker on their own or creative, they don't fit into that mold that you have to get straight A's in school and move on. That's where self-learning comes into play, That mentor thing has been going on for ages. It's been going on as long as human history has existed. And it's still continued on through the modern school system where we've been told that's the best route. It no longer is. And so in this world where we're hopping on the AI bandwagon and it's only going to get faster and faster and smarter and easier to interact with as a human being, I see worlds in which we can leverage this to fast forward our learning 10x, 20x, but to make me a smarter, more knowledgeable, more wise human being versus outsourcing the AI for a quick fix, which we know it doesn't exist in the real world.
So why don't you explain a little bit? Because I'm sure there's people that are watching and they're going to ask the question, how have you taught AI to keep an eye on you, Kosta?
I build context by building markdown files around the AI brain. So like I wrap it around the brain that I'm using. And I think that that's the most important thing. That's the diary for the, tutor with amnesia that I was talking about. That's the video. How I do it is actual markdown files. So a practical way to do it is exactly what Tim was talking about earlier, where you have a conversation with it, but then you tell it, hey, we're going to make some rules. I want you to make some rules about me that you know about me. And I want you to make some rules about how I like to learn. And then I want you to make some rules about presenting information, that you get. Don't just do the work for me. So I actually tell it, but I tell it more importantly to record it because it's got amnesia. And then anytime I want to do work, what I do is I go into that folder and do work there with the markdown files. And I tell it, just like the 51st Dates video, watch the video, read the diary, and then talk to me so it'll understand all the rules. That way the amnesia doesn't come into play. And I'm able to make headway. So those rules evolve over time. I'd add that onto the tail end is when we discuss something and I don't like something, I tell it. And I think the frustrating part of using AI for most people is they'll hit that hurdle, as Tim says, and they don't know how to hop over it, and it becomes this brick wall. So if you just give it markdown files are just English, but they're marked up in a specific way that helps the computer read it faster.
Thank you for explaining that, because I know there's people that are probably asking that question.
So the really cool thing is this might seem overwhelming, but it's a very, very small hurdle. And we have a community that guides you through all that with like step-by-step tutorials on how to do it and how to get by it. And especially like the 2 month process where, we kind of put you into a space where you're building and you're doing it on your own. You're not outsourcing it to AI. And then we also walk you through the AI chatbot for beginners. And then in month 2, we'll walk you through some more. Once you gain some confidence behind it, it's a step by step smaller hurdle and then a larger hurdle and then a larger hurdle, kind of guiding you through those small steps. So, it's totally free to join right now. So if you just go to the community and look at the classroom and the curriculum, it'll actually walk you through all that. I'm in the process right now of building the month 2. It's very challenging I know what I've done, but to break that down and be able to deliver it to everybody is a little bit of a challenge. So I could use everybody's help. The first thing that I'm going to put out there we know isn't good. So if you're interested, if you already use AI especially, and you're interested in joining a community with autodidacts who like to self-learn and connect with other people, figuring out what are the best ways to use this thing in a very, very fast changing AI world, I suggest they just join the community and it'll walk them through step by step.
I want to come up. I'm gonna pull back a thread that was Costa brought on earlier. He was talking about schools and how it's like all memorization, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate and
Yeah.
see how this conversation goes for
Yeah.
that.
Love it.
I don't think schools are just about memorization. I think that's the primary form of, are you accomplishing this? Is memorization, like, how are you, can you write tests, can you regurgitate information with no like things, right? I think there's 2 points though, and the one point is that, like, as you get further into any kind of doctorate degree, any kind of post-secondary study, it becomes less and less about memorizing things and more about understanding things, and like being able to um, create things in the field that are new, or revolutionary, or at least just unique, right? And I think there's, like, that's one conversation, and the other side of it too is that school is also, especially undergraduate school, is really just a prove to me that you can stick with something for 3 or 4 years and not give up halfway through, right? Like, that's when I'm hiring someone and I see that they completed a school degree, the first thing I think is not that they're going to be smart, because I went to people, like, I went to university, and I went to university with a lot of people, and some of those people were not very smart. But my point is, the first thing I think of is that person can stick with something, right? Like, they stuck through the challenges and the hurdles and the, how am I going to fit all this in? How am I going to organize or schedule all this? Or how am I going to complete these 18 assignments all due on the same week and then write a midterm right after? They were able to get through that while also staying on top of memorizing things and doing, like, living their life, so to speak, right? So what are your thoughts about those two forms of, specifically post-secondary education,
Yeah, you're
and
speaking post.
how AI fits into that in terms as like a replacement?
I think there's something to be said about consistency and habit in learning, without a doubt. And school definitely forms that, right? Like, I don't know how your parents were, but it didn't matter if it was snowing. I was the only kid in school, like, in class. Like, I had an old school Greek mom. We weren't missing a day of school. The consistency and habit forming part, I really, really agree with. I would say that it gets better in that you're pushing the envelope if you get to the later stages of school. It's outrageous though that you have to wait to a PhD to, like, basically apply the scientific method. My cat's just
Nice.
get out of here, you. Get out of here.
Nice. It's a good one.
I
Yeah.
really don't want to unpack that, but that is not true science to me, because it's definitely led by funding, and it's still like a terrible, terrible ecosystem, for various reasons, where there's brilliant people that can't pursue what they want to. And for the betterment of humanity, by the way, it just has to also have economic viability, mostly. The big thing that I would say is, like, I didn't make it through school. And it wasn't because I wasn't competent or couldn't stick with things. In fact, I see tons of people degrees that are less consistent in behaviors that matter than I do. And so my pushback on that would be, um, it's not particularly a low bar. Like, I think your bar is good for the consistency and all that stuff. But what it also proves to me, and the thing that's attached to it that you didn't mention, is how much of a conformist then, like, I struggled because I couldn't conform and I was constantly being creative and critically thinking. And that's why I couldn't finish it. And I was in, there's one more reason. I was in STEM, and as soon as I started engineering, as soon as I started my first lecture, they were talking about how engineering was on a different stratum or level of society. Like, turn your nose up, young kids, at everybody. And that was disgusting as well to me. So the indoctrination that was happening there on many levels, it just didn't fit my value set. And so I know that I'm getting somebody that can stick to something, but there's many other proofs for that. I also know I'm getting somebody that like pushed their way through the conformity that I couldn't. And I'm not judging it. I'm just saying there's pros and cons with that group of people, and there's pros and cons with this group of people. And it's I guess, who I would consider the most successful people, like that I kind of view, even though I haven't met them, as mentors, because they have a life in many buckets of success that I would like to emulate or follow, or have a life that's similar. They're almost all people that went to school, or if they didn't finish school, and if they did finish school, they didn't really particularly use it, or it didn't help them along the journey. So those are my like thoughts that might not be consistent with what you're saying, or maybe additive to what you're saying.
Justin, what do you think?
You're definitely focused on post, and I agree with Kosta. I mean, it's a very big thing to unpack, and it's probably not worth on this call. But I think there's definitely something to be said around pre-post as well, like within the conformity that happens within, elementary and secondary school, and how they're actually taught. And I think there's a really interesting factor around the some of this stuff around like No Kid Left Behind, and what that's actually doing to the school system. That there is no, even as much as I can be critical of how they're educating, and I just want to put it on the table. This is not a judgment to teachers or people who are involved in the education system. I actually have them within my family, love them dearly, love there's a genuine passion for a lot of them, and a desire to want to educate the next generation. I just think that the way the system is set up, it's not generally set up for success. And I think that's been proven over millennia. If you look at the school system, and we've talked about this, but if you look at the school system, it's pretty much less than 200 years old. And it was originally concocted to essentially produce factory workers, right? And now it's actually just become kind of a glorified daycare system. And I question the quality of education it's actually giving to individuals that are coming out. There's tons of stats that you can look up within the US and within Canada around the growing increase in homeschooling. And I think the bigger question there is potentially, why are so many people being led to want to start to homeschool, pulling their kids out, even at the cost of essentially we're paying tax money into funding these systems, and we're not getting anything back, because as in the homeschooling system, you have to pay for everything as well, right? So you're still being like taxed for, a certain portion of your income is going towards funding the system that you're taking your children out of, that your children are no longer benefiting from. And now you're taking on an excess of payments essentially to pay for your kids' education as well. So that's a whole other interesting conversation around why is there such a buildup around this piece? Why are so many people shifting that way? And I think it does fundamentally come down to, yes, there's definitely those who feel indoctrination within the system itself, that they don't have power to pull the strings. Their children are being taught and educated in things that they don't want them to be taught. And I think that's a parent's right, quite frankly. Not that I think it's like just because you pull your kid out of the school system that you don't have a responsibility to still educate your child. That's fundamentally what we as parents are doing. We're educating our kids from the day they're born until we pass them off into the world. I would say even after that. I don't think just because I am no longer under my parents' tutelage or household doesn't mean that my parents don't still teach me, probably far less infrequently. And I think there's also a bilateral relationship where I can also teach them now. But it is grounded in, I think, just a broken operating system. And I think too many people just go along with the flow now for convenience. Whether it's, self convenience, I don't want to actually, as a homeschooler, I always, I find it funny when you get into the summer, because we're in the summer now, and how many parents you actually hear that are almost in like panic mode because they've got their kids with them for 2 months kind of thing, or they got to figure out daycare for 2 months. And it's like, I can't wait to get them back into school. And I think that's, first off, as a homeschooler where I'm always around my kids, because I obviously, I do work a lot from home as well. So my kids are actively a part of my day, probably 80% of the day. I don't genuinely feel that way. My kids are not a burden. They're loud sometimes. They get in my way a little bit, but I don't feel this sense of like, oh my gosh, I have to sit with my kids today. That's kind of it's sad in my personal opinion, but um, it's just it's how we've built everything around us, right? To think this way, and to just expect it, and go with the flow of everything like that. But it doesn't answer the question: is the system the most beneficial system for educating our children?
I will answer that. No.
Yeah.
Um, and then to provide context to that, no, my dad was a high school teacher for 27 years and lifelong learner. Oh, I don't think he has spent an entire 365 days and not learned at least like 5 new programs or skills or something. He just learns forever. He's just, you know, it's what he does. And speaking to him with all of the bureaucracy that goes on before the learning even starts and then after the learning happens, like there's so many people who have hands in the pot, so to speak, and make decisions based on stats and data that have nothing to do with are the kids learning and is this the best for them, or what is this allowing them to do, or is this like what's the potential, or who are we not servicing with this model or these decisions, right? They don't, like, those things aren't a part of the decisions. The decisions are like made up of, is this funding, are we going to get scholarships, are we going to get money for this, are we, can we financially do this with the amount of money we got, are people going to leave if we do this, like it's all based off of like business type things. And that's the thing that always struck my dad, who he, it felt like he was in a business, not in the education sector, which shouldn't be a business. Like it shouldn't be how do we make the most money. And like I was just tuning the pros of like post secondary school, right? And if you look at like post secondary school, it's like the most egregious form of education as an economy, or education as like a service, right? Where you have, you know, billions and billions and trillions of dollars moving in the school system in the US and Canada like every year is insane for something that should be like, kind of cost, you were alluding to this with like the funding and stuff earlier. It should be like an academic thing. Like there shouldn't be this like sense of like how do we make more money, or how do we like, you know, yeah, like how it shouldn't be a business. Like it should not be how do we make the most money out of this. It should be, the goal should be how do we teach the kids the best, how do we get the most potential out of these out of these humans.
Yeah, I think what it ends up turning into, and you guys most likely will attest to this, so I'll ask you, the successes in your life, have they been majority self-taught? And I don't want this to be a, shit on school session, because it got me to a certain intelligence level without a doubt, and I'm really appreciative of that. Um, I just think that it's the first time in history where it's like slowly, progressively getting worse. And that out of school, even people that get degrees, you have to be an autodidact to be successful. Like your learning doesn't stop when you get that diploma, it starts. Like you've proved that you can consistently stick with something, or maybe even understand a topic. But even like I know my buddies that continued on with engineering, got an engineering degree, immediate first job was something they'd never done before. and you're continually being a lifelong self-learner. Now we have
Mhm.
AI added to the mix, so it's all going to disrupt. Now we can figure out kind of the best ways to use it. I also do think, just a commentary, Justin, on what you said. I don't think it's just convenience, because this might be a can of worms too that we don't want to open, but the repercussions for speaking outside of the norm nowadays are quite a bit higher. And so there's a
Absolutely.
little bit of cowardice there to not stick to whatever your values or ideals are. And I think that more courage would be beneficial in the education space as well.
Yeah. I don't think you get an argument from me on that one, dude. There's no real question
It's
in it. That's just a, yep, I agree.
he's looking for a thumbs up. The only thing I'll say about that is it's funny how there are certain parts of our society that there is courage to speak up, even with
Mm,
no backing or facts or anything. That's just like, oh, this is my opinion, and I'm gonna yell it out at the top of the rooftops. I think specifically like on social media is the big one where it's like you can find anything on social media. Like if you're like, nah, no one would believe that or no one would think that. Like go search it up on social media, and I'm sure there's like somebody made a page and they're like, the reptiles are living underneath us. They're gonna take us over next year, I swear. Like, and it's gonna have like 10,000 people following it or something, right? It's but then you go to some other things, right? And you say, hey, the school system's not the best for our kids. And everyone's like, what the heck? You're crazy. Like, this is the best thing ever, right? It's, I don't even know if people would argue it's the best thing ever, but like, how many people would say, well, it's the best we've got? Or it's just what it has to be, right? Or like, what else would there be, right? And that's it's kind of what we're trying to do at Everwise here, right? Is
yeah.
we're trying to imagine that third one. Instead of just being okay with the garbage that we're being given, right? Is like, what would it look like if it was better? Like, what would it look like if we actually spent the time necessary with every single kid and gave them every single opportunity to fulfill their potential instead of forcing them into a box and putting that box into a classroom with 30 other boxes when everyone is desperately trying to become a circle or a sphere or a pyramid or a whatever kind of Morpheus blob that you want to turn into, and you're being told, no, don't do that, be a square, be a cube. That's what is necessary, and that will allow you to fit into this cube shaped job that you will have after school. Yeah, like it just, what else could there be? um I just, this really short kind of like tangent here on this, which is we there is this like kind of lean culture, especially coming from the business world, where you want to like cut costs and make things really efficient and be get the most predictive value for the least amount of effort. And that's like a good theory, but I think it's kind of going on this like runaway train type of thing where people only really ever talk about low hanging fruit. Like you go to someone with this huge problem that requires a huge amount of effort, and they go, no, 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 we got 10 low hanging fruits we can get for the same amount of effort. We're going to do that instead. And that's okay sometimes, like to build momentum or to get started or to show like like new leadership, like showing that they can make a positive impact or something. But at some point you need to look at the gigantic 4,000 pound elephant in the room and say, I need to deal with this. Like I need to figure this out. And that's kind of how I feel about the school system, right? At some point as a society we're going to have to say, this doesn't make
Mm.
sense anymore, this doesn't work anymore, what could be different? And I don't
And
see a lot of people talking about that.
come together and do something about it. Like it's
Yeah.
gonna
Mm,
take a village. It's gonna take a big group of people. Like we're the more people, the better. The more brains thinking together, the better outcome we'll have. Just as a push to join the community if you're interested, be a part of building something new. I would say that theory is sound too, but the intention behind it is what matters. If you're trying to do
Mm.
it to help more people. If I have a business and I reduce the cost of like medical insurance for my people, I can get better medical insurance with the profits that I have for my people. If my intention is to help more people because of that, it's a sound theory 100% of the time. If my intention is to make shareholders more profit and have the shit roll downhill to the little people, the peasants, then that's a terrible, terrible theory. So it's not necessarily the theory, and there's no there's no perfect theory out there, or perfect framework. It's the way that we wield it, as human beings, and the intention behind it's really important. So I'd say, if you have all the intentions that we've talked about, please, please, please join the community. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, we definitely would. I think that was a really sharp take that you took. You said there earlier on, though, Tim, that, and I think you actually hit the nail on the head when you're talking about people do have different values, and the value sets of again, there's lots of great teachers, there's lots of great students that go through the system, they come out good, great on the backside of it, right? But I think as a general whole, there's something rotten about the system, and I think you made that kind of comment, and it kind of percolated this thought within me that it isn't. There's going to be different values. There's going to be different driving factors as to why people love something or they don't love something. What's important, honestly, I think, and this kind of comes to what you were talking about, Kosta, as well, about kind of like coming together, is it is important to understand the why behind why someone thinks something. I'm not here to express to people my view of the world and my value is the right way. I might internally think that way, but I know that externally I can't win people to my side by having that approach of just you're wrong and this is why you're wrong, right? I think when you come at things with a sword, it never ends well, right? It's far greater for us to try to come alongside people to understand their thinking of how, like, what made you land there, and having a safe place where we can also express why we've landed there. And that, unfortunately, I think is one of those pieces that has been eroded within society. There's so much tribalism that we actually see out there, where people are, feel entitled to express everything on their mind in the social media atmosphere. And it doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean it's bringing people together. I genuinely don't think there's lots of people out there that don't want to bring people together. They're stuck in their echo chambers. They're on their islands. They are buried within their pride, where they just think they're completely right. And, pardon me, but I'm not God. I don't know everything. And every single day is a learning path. That is the fundamental belief of any autodidact, I believe. That's why we continue along, right? Because we want to continue to learn. We want to increase, our knowledge base, and ultimately, I would say, increase our wisdom that we have, right? Not just the knowledge, but how we're acting that knowledge out, which equates to wisdom, in my opinion. And that's what I definitely think we want to have within Everwise. So again, that selfish plug is, if that's the kind of journey you want to come on, like, join the community. It's free. Come and join us.
I selfishly want to be around all of those like-minded people that are, we'll never get to the full truth. I don't think we'll ever understand it, but we always strive to get closer and closer and closer and deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's a never-ending adventure. So I want to be around people that also want to be on that adventure.
Yeah. This went way deeper than I thought it was going to be, considering the original question we started on, but it's good.